Yo, what's good people? Today I have a very special review. Today I have a super Hwoarang Fanta lever. Now this is super rare. Like, this costed me a kidney, I'm not gonna lie. And it also has Panasonic AM5 blood diamond switches. So very sought after switches and very rare. This lever is very interesting because it has a turquoise / light blue, more on the light blue end, 37A tension. Now this tension is very interesting because it's stiff, but it doesn't feel super stiff. My arm does get a little bit tired, but I'm getting used to more stiff tensions. But my electrics and movement is very snappy. That's the one thing I will say about this lever, is if you get this lever, take the time to adjust to the tension and you'll find that this lever really helps for kind of return to neutral movement electrics. So that's one thing that I did like about this lever. Now the bat top size is interesting because here at the bottom portion of the bat top is wider. I'm not sure if you can see how well it's translating on camera, but this bottom end, this kind of taper, is wider than most bat tops, so that's quite nice and quite a unique feeling as well. I haven't got a bat top that's the same size, and I've got over like 30 bat tops at this point, so this lever has a lot of unique features. It even has a, I'm not sure if you can see, but the mounting bracket is here, right? But then below that you have a adjustment bracket. So this is a height adjustment bracket, and obviously it's metal. It's difficult to see the contrast on camera, but you can kind of see there's an adjustment bracket below the mounting bracket. So this lever has a lot going for it, but it is very rare and it's very expensive just because of how rare it is. The Super Hwoarang, on the other hand, is built upon the Myeongshin Fanta, but it's kind of like a souped up Myeongshin Fanta, so it's very good. And also it has a mid collar, so that means it's going to be compatible with most sticks. We're going to run through tech specs, what you get in the package. I'm also going to show you Super Hwoarang's blog page because it's very useful if you are interested in picking this up. It's very useful to have access to that blog page. Now it is difficult to find, so I'm gonna link it in the description, and keep up to date with Super Hwoarang. Now he is very responsive as well. That's one thing that I do like, is when people ask him about his products, he's very responsive. We're gonna also run through execution, movement, all that good stuff that we usually do in these reviews. Do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Liking will help with the algorithm, commenting will also help with the algorithm, and subscribing will let me know that you enjoy the content. Let's get into it. Exciting side note as well, I do have a master lever to show you guys as well. So we will be reviewing this in the future. These are really difficult to get your hands on. Now, just to see how it feels, I put an ASI ball bearing inside, but to be honest, I'm just gonna stick with regular actuators because it just doesn't feel compatible with the ecosystem, I don't think. I mean, it feels fine, but it just doesn't feel the same as when they're in ASI levers themselves. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for the master lever review. Okay, so here we have Super Hwoarang's blog. It does have loads of information about different iterations. These blog posts go very in depth. So as you can see, we have the crown version here, and below this it has different tensions and different colors. He describes his testing, what he feels, his thoughts and feelings, and why he chose certain things. And to be honest, he doesn't sell them very expensive just because people who get their hands on them, and now they're so rare, they can price them up, if that makes sense, because he sells them for about 55k Korean, which translates to about £30 UK, £35 UK. So quite cheap for what he provides. The bat top is a regular bat top. The shaft is 9mm. The grommet is a 37A grommet by IST standard. So if you've seen the Korean grommet sniffers tension kind of chart, I guess, there's different manufacturers and there's different ratings, right? So if you look at the IST rating, you see the black is at 40A. This light blue tension here is 37A, so it's slightly softer than the black IST tension. The QC of these tensions that Super Hwoarang make is way better than IST, way better. Okay, I have the 40A IST black tension, and I did some hole punching, and what this does is it makes the tension lower. So compare these holes to, I also did it on an ASI tension. Compare the cleanliness of the hole punching, is kind of insane. So that's what I mean when I say the QC and the quality of rubber is much better from Super Hwoarang than it is from IST, because I don't have issues with IST. I think IST are very good. It's just the QC sometimes can be a bit weird in terms of different things they sell. Now, they might not be the manufacturers, which I think they are, but they might not be, I'm not sure. They might outsource parts in terms of tensions. But yeah, if you compare the cleanliness of the hole punch to the ASI tension, it's just night and day. My point was the Super Hwoarang parts are very clean and I've not had any issues. I've not suspected any QC issues or anything like that. The machined collars are very nice as well. Back to the specs. So 9mm shaft, low to mid collar. It has AM5 BD switches. The actuators, you actually get a choice of 3 sizes. So you get a choice of 15.4, millimeter, 15.5 and 15.8. Okay, continuing on with the tech specs, we were talking about the shaft. The shaft is 9 millimeters. As you can see here, the lower part of the body is from IST and it's built upon the Myeongshin Fanta. So the Myeongshin Fanta from IST has a 60 millimeter switch spacing. So the Super Hwoarang Fanta is going to have a switch spacing of 60 millimeters. And obviously the actuators, you get three. You get 15.4, 15.5 and 15.8. I use 15.8 because that's just, it feels the best for me. But you can switch them if you don't like how sensitive it feels. To be honest, mine doesn't feel super sensitive, but if you don't like the sensitivity, you can always just use 15.5 or 15.4. So he does give you the choice of different actuators. And obviously, when the lever comes back in stock, he may have different size actuators than those ones already provided, but you'll be able to get different components and configure it to your liking. But the way it's packaged here, you get 3 different size actuators. So yeah, you can pick and choose which one works the best for you with a 60 millimeter switch spacing. Okay, so now we're in game with the Super Hwoarang Fanta, and I really like the texture of the bat top. Actually, it's quite unique. It's silky, but it's grippy as well, and it has 0 imperfections. So that's something that is very nice when using the Super Hwoarang Fanta. Is, yeah, the bat top is grippy, but it feels very silky and smooth. I'm not sure the exact material they're using for this, but it does feel very, very nice indeed. Okay, talking about the stiffness of the lever itself, it is stiff, but it's very snappy at the same time. So I don't mind the stiffness because it does give a unique feel. Even though I have used stiff levers in the past, there's something about this lever that with the short throw, because to me, this feels like it has quite a relatively short throw, which I'm not opposed to. I do like the unique feeling that the lever provides, but it is stiff, as said before, but the snappiness is really, really nice. And the return to neutral is great as well. So there's pretty much no pushback or reverse inputs, but the return to neutral is very, very snappy. So that's one thing that I do like. And my movement is very, very clean and compact. So snappy. And I feel like with the Black Fanta as well is that I can control my wave dash a lot more, even though it's super stiff, and it does kind of tire out my wrist a little bit because it is a bit more stiff than I'm used to in terms of, you know, grommet tension. But the trade-off is the return to neutral is really snappy, feels fantastic, and the control I get with that is huge. So I think the trade-off for having such a stiff lever is that you get better control. For me personally, I have better control of my movement, of my inputs, of my wave dash, especially with Mishimas. My electrics feel very, very, very snappy. So when we're talking about sidestep electrics, yeah, they feel super, super sick. Okay, time to go to the big screen to show you some execution stuff with the Super Hwoarang Fanta. Okay, if we actually look at the parts and the components, the Super Hwoarang Fanta uses a Myeongshin Fanta body. So what I can say about the lever is that this feels like a Myeongshin Fanta on crack. It's everything the Myeongshin Fanta to me should have been, and unfortunately isn't, because for me, the Myeongshin Fanta has a lot of QC issues and stuff like that that prevents it from being a very solid lever. It's a good lever by itself, but I just think there's so many better options out there now, especially now when there's so many adaptations of the Fanta style lever and then crown and blending them as well. I think the Super Hwoarang Fanta really stays true to the Myeongshing Fanta roots. Where it differs is, of course, the tension. The bobbin is Super Hwoarang specific. So the bobbin inside is exclusive to the Super Hwoarang Fanta, so you can't find that anywhere else. Super consistent electrics, very snappy for me. I really do enjoy it. Even though it's not really my personal setup, I wouldn't set my levers up like this stiff, but for me, jumping into it, it does feel easy to use. I will say the diagonals can be a little bit tough to find. They can be a little bit tough to find at first, but as I said, with all levers, it doesn't matter how difficult diagonals feel to find. In the beginning, you will get used to it. I guess it's whether you want to put the work in. For example, a knee lever Neo would be very easy for you to jump into because the diagonals are very easy to find from the jump. Something like a Sandrox V6, I feel like kind of has a medium difficulty when it comes to finding corners. I did feel like the Sandrox V6 was more difficult to find the corners than the knee lever Neo, for example. And I feel like the Sandrox V7 had slightly better diagonals from the get-go. But as I said, Sandrox do have a good ecosystem of their own. So, you know, just throw a bigger actuator in and increase that diagonal area that you can find. So you can increase the diagonals. It's not a problem. When we're talking about stock levers, yes, I do think this lever is a little bit tricky to find the diagonals, but I don't think it's that much of a problem. Yeah, this lever feels super smooth to me. I really like it despite it feeling stiff. You can see my electrics are very consistent. Even the inputs is always the same. Super consistent. So as you can see, the 6 electrics. Now 6 electrics is very difficult to do. This lever has no issues cranking out 6 electrics, perfect electrics, you know, Nina's insta while standing 1 loops. It's very versatile. I think it is, to me, because I've been using levers for a while, for me personally, it's easy to pick up and play. The only drawback I would say with this lever is that it's stiff. Now that's not a drawback, but it is something to consider if you don't like stiff levers and you want to rock it stock. It is going to tire you out. It is. Now, the more you use it, the more used to the tension your arms and wrists are going to get. Yeah, this lever is quite stiff, but I feel like that's a plus in the characteristics of the lever. As I said, this is derived from the Myeongshing Fanta because it does use the same body. So I would say the Super Hwoarang Fanta is, once again, a Myeongshing Fanta on crack or on steroids. Because it really is. It feels way cleaner. It feels way more consistent. It feels... just the QC alone just feels great. The switches. Now, let's talk about the switches. Let's talk about Blood Diamond switches, the very infamous Blood Diamond switch, because I have a set of Blood Diamond switches in this lever. And to be honest, I think they're good. I just don't think they're worth the hype. I don't think they're worth the price tag. I think what it is people are afraid of missing out. It's the fear of missing out aspects of why these switches are so sought after, because I think for me, they're not my favorite switch. They're up there. They're good. They're very consistent. They're clean. They have a nice actuation, smooth actuation. The stiffness is just right for me, but I just think I prefer Hwoarang A6s. That's just my preference. And Hwoarang A6s, to be honest, there's been a recent craze over Hwoarang A6s. They've been very difficult to get for some reason. But I think people are clocking on now that the A6s are really sick. They have a good actuation smoothness, I would say. They have a good actuation force required, so stiffness. And I just think they're very, very solid and they're consistent. The QC in Hwoarang is generally pretty good. And I would say, yeah, those are my favorite switches, the Hwoarang A6s. Now, the AM5 Blood Diamond switches are good, but I don't think they're worth the hype personally for me. I could get blasted for saying this on the internet, but I think they're a bit overrated, to be honest. I don't think they're worth the price. Like, I think I saw people selling sets for over $100, which is crazy to me, to pay $100, $150 for a set of Blood Diamond switches. I just think it's absurd. When you can go and get a set of Hwoarang A6s for $20, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Of course, there's always the collector's aspect, and you know, I get it because I'm a collector myself. I have a Super Hwoarang Fanta, which is pretty much non-existent. You can't buy these unless you know someone who has one, or maybe you know Super Hwoarang in person and he's really, you know, he's one of your guys, maybe. But other than that, you're not going to get one. So yeah, you just have to wait for him to release. And I don't think it's in his plans currently. I think I saw something about him releasing stuff later this year, but he said it's very like up in the air. So he could or he couldn't. So yeah. These levers are very, very difficult to get, but I think very, very solid. As I said, I love the Batop material, very silky, but very grippy at the same time. No imperfections, very smooth. I think the throw is shorter than your average. So it's not super tiny because the shaft is 9mm, but it is pretty small, I would say. But I think that complements the stiff tension. You don't want your throw to be huge if the tension's quite stiff, because if you're not used to that, you're going to get tired very quickly, especially if you're one of those players that rides the gate a lot for inputs. You're going to find yourself getting tired a lot. I would say the diagonals are quite difficult to find at first, but other than that, super solid lever. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.